ESPN 1420, ESPN1420.com. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into hour number 2 of Footnotes. Special hour, special weekend. Of course, over in Natchitoches, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremonies taking place for the class of 2015. A class that includes 8 new inductees, and of course, amongst the class of 2015, former Louisiana Ragin, Cajun, and LSU softball coach, the great Yvette Girouard. Coach, to join me right now. Coach, good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm on my way to Natchitoches as we speak. We have to be there at 2:30 this afternoon.
I understand. And, of course, a lot of people familiar around here with, of course, Coach Girouard. She's already in a couple of Hall of Fames, the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame, inducted there in 2005, and also the Louisiana Softball Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2002. Just a wonderful career for Coach Girouard, which we'll talk about. She compiled 12,085 career victories, fourth most in NCAA history. And, Coach, I guess my first question is, this is your third Hall of Fame, and I was kind of talking about it. As a kid, I dreamed of, scoring the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl and hitting the game-winning home run in the World Series and maybe even being an MVP or an All-Star, but nobody ever really dreams of, being a Hall of Famer. Has your induction into any one of the Hall of Fames, including this one, has that really sunk into you yet?
Not really, and I think that I'm just like you. I envisioned all those things as a little kid, but remember, they didn't let me play. They didn't let girls play anything in Broussard, and I was kind of a pre-Title IX baby. But yeah, I just wanted to play. So, it's funny the way life goes and what God grants you. But I didn't have a career on the field. I mean, yes, I played volleyball at then USL and in high school, but that was it. But never played the game of fast pitch, so it's pretty incredible that I would be inducted into the Hall of Fame for being a softball coach.
Talking with Yvette Girouard, being inducted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame this weekend. The interview brought to you by Service Chevrolet Cadillac. And, Coach, you grew up in a sports-related family. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to be a little bit embarrassed if I am wrong, but I'm doing a feature all summer about the old Evangeline League. Every day I talk about a different team, a different player. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't your dad play in the old Evangeline League?
My dad played in the Tesh League. I used to think it was the Evangeline League, and then finally my mom called me. I guess she heard. She said, "Your dad's embarrassed. He was in the Tesh League. He wasn't good enough for the Evangeline League." But that was the league that was right under it.
Yeah, well, I knew it was something similar. But you grew up in a sports family, and I take it that sports was always a big part of your life.
Absolutely. My dad was a huge sports guy. He played basketball and baseball, and as we talked about, but he watched baseball on TV every night. Well, every night when the Braves came on, the cable channel. But he would listen to the Yankees on the radio or whatever. But every summer of our lives, we went to Houston, Texas, to watch first the Colt 45 and then the Houston Astros. And then they would take us to Galveston after that. And I didn't really see Florida beaches till I was 19 years old and thought, what the heck?
Now, of course, you coached and taught at Lafayette High and at Como before you became, the first head coach with the Cajuns and started the program in 1981. Tell me the thought process here. I mean, did you get a phone call? Did you call somebody? I mean, did somebody just all of a sudden one day say, we're going to start softball? How did the actual talk about the program first start?
Are you talking about the Cajuns?
Yes, exactly.
That start? Well, that was, Ursula Kleiser played. I coached and taught Ursula from the time she was 14 years old all the way through college. And she and I, were very close. In fact, she was supposed to induct me this weekend, but she has a family emergency and can't. But she was, I had coached her at Lafayette High, and she was going to then USL on a volleyball scholarship. And she heard about the fact that they were going to start a softball program. And the story goes that Sherry LeBas showed her a name of a coach that they thought they wanted, and she tore it up and said, nope, why don't you call Yvette Girouard? She's going to coach the team. So Sherry called me, and, we went through the whole interview, and, she said, okay, there's no money for the budget. This was in, November when she called me. You'll play in February. You don't have a field, and you don't have a team, and I looked at her and said, and you expect me to win? And she said, well, of course we expect you to win. So I said, okay. So we went, that first year is unbelievable. 5 city parks. I didn't even know where we were playing until the day before. And everybody was a walk-on. My mom made the first uniform. She took the old basketball warm-ups and cut them and made, pants out of them. And then, after that first year, I was like, there's no way. I'm not doing this. I was like, it's too much. So anyway, I went back and my mom said, no, you're going to do this, because at the time I had left teaching in the public school system and went to work at Tunn's, the family business in Broussard. So anyway, I'm going to give my mom a lot of credit on Saturday night, because really she's a big part of why I've had this career.
Oh, I know she is. Now, I'm sure that you've been asked a number of times your more memorable games, and we'll get to those. But do you remember the first one, Coach? I mean, 1981, I think you were playing UNO, and it was a victory.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, you remember?
And we won.
Yeah, and you won. But do you vividly remember that game? I mean, number one, were you nervous?
Probably not smart enough to be nervous. But I've said this before. Gosh, the climb was so much fun. I think about how much I didn't know then, how much I still don't know now, but how much more I kind of know now. But the climb was so much fun. Those first groups, they were all a lot of local girls, Cajun girls, and some I had coached in high school, and we just had so much fun together. There's so many stories, and I was just thinking of one the other night. I went to get the school bands to go to North Louisiana for a trip. We were going to do, I think, Monroe and then Ruston, and there was no school bands. I had reserved them, but I think they were all broken. So I started getting on the phone, and the only rental cars in town at that time was called Rent-A-Wreck. And we had to drive to North Louisiana with a couple of vehicles that had signs on the side of them that said Rent-A-Wreck. And I was humiliated and just, oh, my God, the kids are just going to be so upset. They thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and they had a ball. And that, Steve, is the difference probably between today's kids and those kids. They were just, they didn't expect anything. They didn't expect, $1 million stadiums and 5 bats per person per year and, all kind of, scholarship money. They were just glad to eat out of the concession stand. And that happened. Eating out of the concession stand happened for a long time.
No.
But yeah, the climb was so much fun, and probably, and I have a lot of those players, I believe, that are coming this weekend. They're like my daughters and my sisters and whatever. So we're a big family.
Now, we go back to 1990, and that's the first year that the Cajuns, of course, was in postseason play, and you're playing Texas A&M. And I still remember it was a bad throw, and Lisa Wood rounding the bases. I was there in the stands, and you beat Texas A&M 1-0. But prior to that, the regionals were different then, because it was like 3-team regionals, and you really had some good teams. I mean, you won 48 games the year before that, and 39 games in 1985. You had some really, really good teams before that. When was it? At what point during the 80s did you tell yourself or one of your coaches or one of your players or one of your family members that, hey, we got the makings of something pretty special here? At what point did you really think that this softball thing at then USL could really take off?
Well, you were talking about that. It was so hard to get into regionals in the 80s because there was only 16 teams in the whole country that got into a regional format. The championship bracket was so small, and then it finally grew a little bit. But when we finally got in, it was like, oh my God, it was like crazy. We had the Mardi Gras bleachers out there. But I'm going to tell you, there was a day of practice, and I believe Pat Murphy was with me, and we had practice. And after it was over with, I looked at him and I said, God, we are good. We are really, really good. And this is going to be special. And, when the Alfred Lansons of the world really adopted us, he was such a big, influential man in the community. And he just made it cool to come to Lady Cajun softball. And everybody just kind of followed. He got so many people involved in the program. He didn't give millions of dollars or anything like that. I think everybody thinks that. But what he did was he got so many other people to buy into the program and got them to come. And, I spoke everywhere and anywhere I could speak, just like Tony Robichaux does, I'm sure, just like the Lotiefs have done. But I'd always tell them, come, and I'll give you your money back if you don't have a good time in the stands. And, of course, then Robert Harris appeared, and then it even became more of a show. And I loved it because I would do anything and everything to get people to come to the games.
And most of the time they came, they had a great time. And, of course, you make it. And, by the way, we are speaking with Yvette Girouard here on Footnotes this morning. Coach Girouard going to be inducted, one of 8 new inductees into Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame in Natchitoches this weekend. The interview is brought to you by our good friends over at Service Chevrolet Cadillac. You go to the College World Series for the first time, Coach, in 1993. You go to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and knock off the Michigan Wolverines to do that. I mean, I know it was different, and this might seem like a crazy question, but the first postseason victory in 1990, that win over Texas A&M, and then the win over Michigan to finally get you in the College World Series. I know it was different, but am I crazy to say that maybe the two are kind of equal in some kind of way?
Yeah, you're right, because it finally put us on that national stage, and it finally made our program legit, because I kept fighting for us to get into a regional berth, and I kept being told, well, you're coming close, you're almost beating these teams, because we'd go toe-to-toe with everybody that was ranked ahead of us or whatever. Of course, nobody really knew the rankings then. And, we'd lose in the last inning or something. But, they kept saying you're getting close. And you're right, after that first one. And then the absolute, it was just awesome the way the crowds turned out, Acadiana turned out to support the team, where, we were like the number 1 ranked regional with attendance. So that really caught everybody's attention. And unlike baseball, you can't really buy a softball regional, it just doesn't pay for itself. But, it did catch the attention of everybody on the national level.
You know how big you were, Coach, and how big the softball program was? I was just reminded by a mutual friend of ours, Scott Brazda. Back in the old days, NBC used to never say ABC on air. CBS used to never say PBS on air. I mean, you never said anything about the competition. But KATC and KLFY actually did a live joint shot with you at the same time. That had to be a first, not only in Ragin Cajun sports history, but maybe a first in sports history, period.
Oh, I remember. I took the microphone, and gosh, his name is slipping me right now for the
Rex Moore?
For the other station. Who was it? I'm sorry.
Was it Rex Moore?
It was Rex. It was Rex.
Yeah.
I knew it was the buddy of all my buddies, of all the Red Dot people. It was Rex. And I remember talking and looking and saying, this has got to be a first. Y'all are both broadcasting y'all are both here together, and we're incorporating both of you. So it was, it was fun. It was so much fun.
Now, let me ask you before we get to your days at LSU. You go back to that 1994 season. Just to me as a fan, I mean, I always tell people to enjoy the moment because and never be too worried about postseason play because you enjoy the great team that you have. That 1994 team was a great team. Unfortunately, came up a little bit short against Utah in the regionals here at Lafayette. I know coaches don't like to use the word disappointing, and I understand why. But is that the one year that you look back, maybe at your time with the Cajuns and the Tigers, and say, "Boy, that's really one that got away"?
No, I would call it devastating.
Yeah,
I cried for about a week. Because that team was brilliant, and we just ran into a pitcher who shut us down. But, we had, I think 6 All-Americans on that team, and, we just steamrolled through everybody, and, that's just what happens sometimes. You run into somebody that can shut you down on a weekend, and I guess Kathy Stanzo's dad, who was a brilliant second baseman for us, he pulled me aside and he told me, he said, sometimes it's going to be the team that you least expect is going to do the most for you instead of the one that, maybe you just felt sure that this one was going to take you all the way. But that team was ranked second in the country.
Yeah.
And, that was a devastating blow to us. And, of course, we lost half our team, and after that, Pat Murphy told me he was leaving. So it was all kind of blows all at once.
Coach Yvette Girouard joined us this morning. Took 3 Ragin' Cajun teams to the College World Series, 1993, 1995, and 1996. Coach, then you moved to LSU and took 2 Tiger teams to the College World Series, 2001 and 2004, becoming one of only 3 coaches all time to take 2 teams to the Women's College World Series. Your time at LSU, over 500 wins. I know it was different because softball started to explode at that time, and you had so much more, competition and whatnot. But you had a tremendously successful run at LSU as well. And I guess my first question there is that first College World Series appearance for LSU in 2001, I know very different, but yet at the same time, you had to feel that I guess my question is, do you feel that at the time it put LSU on the map of softball as a team that can get there year in and year out?
Absolutely. I think that, it was a major hurdle for the program because they were really very, very good the last couple of years before I got there, but they kept running into a pitcher named Courtney Blade, who could beat anybody at any time, and that's why, seeding, as we all know, and is so important because not only do you have to be good, you have to be lucky, and all kind of things have to go your way, but, of course, that first one was bittersweet. It was awesome that we went, but it was horrible that I had to play the Cajuns. I woke up that morning and I puked. So it was tough going to the field that day.
No, there's no doubt, and I know that's something that that you got a job to do, and you're worried about your players at the same time. But just to the people out there that pull for the Cajuns or for the Tigers, that's something that really pulled at your heartstrings. I'm sure whenever the regional bids came out during your days at LSU, you were probably praying and hoping as much as anybody that the 2 teams wouldn't meet either in a regional or a super regional.
Well, there's no question. It was very emotional for me every time. And, because I have lifelong, that's home for me. It will always be home. And I have good friends that, good people. And, it's just hard because you're right. You have a job to do, but, it's, of course, I grew up a Cajun. I wanted to beat the Tigers in everything if it was tiddlywinks. And I would, I've been reminded of this a few times. There was a doctor that was running at Cajun Field, and he had LSU hat on, and I screamed at him and fussed at him. And when I got to LSU, he came in my office and reminded me of it. So I'm not unlike all the fans. So, yeah, it was tough.
That 2004 team that you had, Coach, at LSU, I still remember that team, and I don't remember every pitch, every inning of the College World Series, but it seems to me that I don't know, you had a couple of tough breaks, correct me if I'm wrong, in that College World Series, but wasn't that team very close to maybe winning the whole thing in 2004?
Well, the worst thing was that they made us play 3 games in one day.
That's right. Yeah, that's it.
Problem.
Yeah, that's it.
And
correct.
No one has ever done that before, and I'm sure no one will ever have to do that again. I mean, my SWNA went toe-to-toe because I was like, they cannot make us do this. This is just so unfair. But we got in the losers bracket, which, okay, that's a bad deal. But to have to play 3 games in one day, and I just told her that they would never make the baseball regional do this, ever. And they won't, I'm sure, ever do this again to a team. But we were 7 outs away from the national championship series, or the game, because it wasn't a series then, I don't believe. And I'll go to my grave thinking that we should have been in the championship game. But, yeah, there's a team that you talk about when on paper should have never been that good. And those kids I had 13 players. I would go to bed every night praying that nothing happened to anybody. But, I mean, everything went right that year. And, we had a catcher who had the yips that couldn't throw it back to the pitcher. The pitcher looked like a librarian. I mean, we'd worked very hard on Schmidt's stamina, but she threw 650 pitches in that regional. But, Schmidt's a lawyer, and Danos, the catcher, is a doctor now. So we had some smart kids on that team, but we had a first baseman who had cut, came back and was an all-SEC player. We had a second baseman who had the yips, too, couldn't throw the ball to first base sometimes. We had a third baseman who had bad hips and couldn't move. So it was like, this is crazy. But as it turned out, it's the team that got me the closest to the national championship game.
Talking with Coach Yvette Girouard this morning. The interview brought to you by our good friends at Service Chevrolet Cadillac. Coach, a couple of final questions before I let you go here this morning. I've always been a proponent of women's sports. I mean, like I said, I was watching Cajun softball games in the first year in 1981. But it's a little bit different that you have when you have children. I have a daughter now, and I look at some of the coaches, and I'm going to keep it to softball, but I know that they got a lot of women's basketball coaches and soccer coaches and track and field coaches that are big proponents of women's equality. But, when I look at people like you and Michael Lotief and Carol Hutchins, and I probably shouldn't start naming names because I'm going to leave some very important people out, but all of those people, I think anybody that has a daughter, they owe a debt of gratitude to those people for fighting for equality for women. Obviously, it's come a long way, but what does sexual equality mean to you, and how far do you think it's come over the last 25 years or 35 years or so, and how far does it have yet to go?
Well, you're right. I do remember you being a big fan, because I remember us doing interviews when you were at the Crowley station.
Yep.
I thank you for that. But I'm going to tell you how far it's come. When I first started coaching at Lafayette High and I wanted to build my own field, I got a tiller and to till out my infield. You know who helped me? Gerald Broussard. He was a baseball player at Lafayette High then. Gerald Broussard helped me one day because my arms were about to fall off. But the supervisor of Lafayette Parish School Boards, who was in charge of facilities and baseball fields and stuff like that, I asked him for dirt and sand, just like he delivered to the baseball field at Lafayette High, and he told me that he had to see how hard I was going to work before he gave me the dirt and the sand. Needless to say, he could never say that today to any female sport. And you're right. And I'm going to talk big about Title IX because you're right. I think some kids don't know the difference between, how hard we had to fight for all of this. And, of course, TV has done an incredible job for our sport and, made us something to watch. And that was our final hurdle. It was TV. We all knew that.
No doubt about it. Well, Coach, again, congratulations on everything. Yvette Girouard, over 1,200 victories, 1,285, fourth most in NCAA history. To be precise, 31 years as a coach, 1981 to 2000 at UL and 2001 to 2011 at LSU. Owns a .755 career winning percentage. Of course, built the Cajun program from the ground up as its first ever coach. Twice winning National Coach of the Year, and then a four-time SEC Coach of the Year at LSU, and just one of the all-time greats in women's sports, and certainly in softball. And Coach, just speaking as the fan in me, thank you for everything that you did to start the program with the Cajuns, and thank you for everything that you've done for women's sports. And I know you don't take the Hall of Fame lightly, but if there's anybody that deserves to be in there, it's certainly you, and you're the first softball coach to be inducted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. So again, thank you for everything that you did, and very much congratulations to you.
Steve, thank you for your friendship through my whole career. I appreciate it.
Okay, Coach, you be safe on the trip up to Natchitoches, and again, congratulations. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yvette Girouard, one of the great ones, and the term great is often overused. I mean, it really is. But there are some times when the word great can be an understatement, and in the case of her, it's an understatement. I mean, you think of how lucky the Ragin Cajun softball program has been. Yvette Girouard, Stephanie Loteef, and Michael Loteef. I mean, really. I mean, isn't that unbelievable? That's three of the best coaches of all time. And you say, okay, well, what do you mean like the best of? If I would name you the 50 best softball coaches of all time, those three would be in there. But thank you to Yvette Girouard for joining us this morning. And thank you to our good friends over at Service Chevrolet Cadillac, responsible for bringing you the Yvette Girouard interview right here on ESPN 1420 and ESPN1420.com.